Hello.
Yes. Hello.
Hi, what's up, Silver?
What's up? What's up? And who's this?
This is
Nubian Wolf?
Miriam.
Nubian
Yes,
Wolf?
Nubian Wolf, also known as Miriam.
Okay. So you're calling in because you had a disagreement with my last live, correct? About what I had to say about Zendaya?
Yes,
What
so that was probably the only part that I disagreed with.
what
I am,
specifically what specifically did I say that what did I say specifically about Zendaya that bothered you?
um, I typically didn't like the part where I felt like you were trying to say that because she started in Disney roles or more so wholesome roles, that now that she's, matured to an adult, that it's her sole responsibility to, adhere to the younger generation or demographic that now watches some of her reruns of her more wholesome roles when she was younger. That's something that I don't agree with. I think that when you are in Hollywood and you start acting at a very young age, and you do mature and develop and take on some serious roles, it isn't your responsibility as the actor or artist to say, I'm going to not take this role or I'm going to not sing this type of music because I want to, only cater to this younger demographic, or I want to basically just make sure that doing a parent's role is kind of my thing. Like, just basically make sure that, I'm still accepted by the younger generation. So I need to kind of tone down my creative direction when, choosing roles or doing music. That's just something that I don't feel like she should be held accountable for.
Okay. Um But don't you notice that it's kind of a trend with a lot of child stars who typically start off with wholesome roles and almost right off the bat, for some of them, they kind of start to take on more adult themed roles where they're either, acting in some promiscuous way, or they've become a degenerate, or they are already a degenerate. And I'm just one of the things that I was pointing out, it's not just Zendaya, it's a whole bunch of child stars who started from Nickelodeon, who started from Disney, who happened to go from a more wholesome role into a more, degenerate role. And you know that's the observation. It's more of an observation. It doesn't have to do with Zendaya specifically, but
Hmm.
it's it's a pattern of girls who started out just as she did and ended up just as she's doing now, so to speak. That's
Well, I was going to say, that there's a key word that you put there, child. So when you are a child in Hollywood, of course you're going to be playing wholesome roles. I think your point that you're trying to make is that when they do become into adulthood and when they are trying to transition to more mature roles, should the mature roles be so extreme? And I think that just depends on that person's beliefs, family background. So I can give you an example. Jojo Siwa is her name. She's a child star. Now she's of age and an adult. And I think that in a few more years, she might just throw the bow ties, the bows away, and, the tutus, and start becoming i- in her own as a woman. And where do we kind of draw the line? You say degeneracy, but it's like, would if Zendaya was to play a role where she wasn't in a you know, situation where she was having sexual relationship with two men and she was in a more serious role, like I don't know, give an example, just something that came to my mind, like something like what Tom Hanks did in Captain Phillips. Is that considered to be more wholesome? Is that considered for her to not to be in the degeneracy category because she is picking more mature roles that don't have to do with sexual innuendos? I'm just kind of confused because I'm like, you're saying child, but like everyone grows. A child may not like vegetables when they're younger, and then when they turn 21 could be a vegan. So it's just like, what are you trying to say? Are you trying to say that because she's an adult she should be careful about the roles that she chooses, even if it's a mature type of role? Just kind of be careful on what she's willing to put out there, because she's on Euphoria right now, and she's one of the few castmates that have sat there with the director, Sam Livingston, and said that she refuses to get naked. Other people have agreed, and she's refused to show her body. So I think that she does stand up for herself, and she does, kind of choose the direction that she wants to go go in. I don't necessarily agree with that particular uh scene in the new movie coming up because I don't want her to be looked at in a negative light. But at the same time, I just kind of want to know where you're going with this, because people do change and evolve, and a lot of people do want to step away from being known as that child star. I mean, yes, Macaulay Culkin makes a lot of money from being the Home Alone kid, but I'm sure if he was in a different movie, he wouldn't want to be known as the Home Alone kid. Like he would want to be appreciated for his evolution as an actor. So I think you need to be smart about the
Yeah.
roles that you choose and the message that you put out there, because
No, I
you
think
love
I
your
think
fans.
I definitely hear your point. I think what I'm more or less focused on is, you see, that the whole thing is, you don't want to be, as an actor, you don't want to be typecast. You don't want to
Hmm.
be uh forced into a box and labeled, well, I started out as a child star, now all I can do is wholesome roles. Of course you don't want to be cornered into a one-dimensional form of acting. However, on the flip side of that, you also have to be aware, right, and have the awareness to understand the kind of impact you're going to have on on children who still, of course, watch your reruns, and now after watching your Disney Channel reruns are watching your more recent things, which are now adult themed. And
Hmm.
that is, we can see the impact of that time and time again with child stars who started out a particular way and ended up a particular way, um, and the influence they've had on not just the generation that grew up with them, but of a generation that's a little bit younger and
Hmm.
is still young enough to, you know, I want to say they're still young enough to watch her old stuff and understand, but then when they grow up, instead of them being, adults, they're like preteens, right? So
Hmm.
it does have it does have an ultimate consequence in my opinion, when you are portraying a particular lifestyle to minds that are far more susceptible and impressionable. And that's the kids, right? Because
Hmm.
that's what she's, also had in my video where, the little girl was like, what was it like making that transition from being pretty much a wholesome child star to, doing Euphoria. And I think that was a valid question. It was pretty ironic that that question's actually coming from a kid. And you can see that she kind of, when the question's asked by the kid, she kind of
Hmm.
deflects, right? By saying, oh, that's the parents' fault. Yeah, it is the parents' fault. But you also have to be willing to take accountability and understanding who your target and who the fuck your target audience is, because your target audience isn't going to just be young adult females. Your target audience is going to be also little girls. Just like Beyonce is a grown ass woman, but has to also understand a lot of people who listen to her music are
Hmm.
little girls. Even that's how it was, 20 years ago when Beyonce was a young adult. She had young adults listen to her music, but I can say you were probably a kid 20 years ago. You still listen to her music, right? I mean, look at
I will say this though. I will say I think a lot of the blame should be put on the parents, just because you have to remember that this is their career. So a lot of them kind of go where the money is. Once you hit a certain age and you get offered different type of roles, you can kind of then choose what direction you want to go in. Do you want to go in a direction of Hallmark? Do you want to go in the direction of HBO Max? Like, you kind of get to pick the direction that you kind of want to go in, and kind of where it's going to bring a lot of lucrative revenue, as well as bring in new people from different demographics that don't normally listen or watch your shows, kind of bringing them in. So I think it just kind of depends. I think once you kind of retire from these Disney and Nickelodeon roles, and you go into movies or television shows that are more mature, you kind of gotta choose what's best for you. And I don't think that Zendaya can sit there and kind of tell a kid, well, she's probably embarrassed, but I don't think she can kind of sit there and say, well, listen, I'm 26 now. I'm not the same. Me and Bella Thorne aren't the same 15, 16-year-old girls that were in.
it's kind of ironic, right? Because she's making the choice to say, "Well, I'm not going to be naked in front of a camera, but I'm okay with, making out with two guys at the same time in front of a camera." So it's not to say that
Mhm.
she's not saying I'm not going to be naked because I hold myself up to some kind of moral higher standard. No, I think she doesn't want to be naked. I think it more or less has to do probably with her own insecurities about her body
Yes,
than it has
probably.
to do with her wanting to take the moral high ground. Because if she was the type of person who said, "Well, I'm not going to be naked," because she, wants to take the moral high ground, then at the same time, she would definitely turn down a role which had her making out with two guys at the same time, right?
Well,
Because
yeah, but then you have someone like Penn Badgley from You, who tells you that he's no longer going to do kissing
kissing
scenes
scenes,
and
right?
sexual scenes because he feels like it disrespects or taints his marriage. So at the end of the day, I just kind of feel like it just depends. Like, you have people who are very comfortable on camera being naked. One of the girls on Euphoria, she's a former porn star, maybe still is. Her name is Cherry. She's very
So
comfortable being naked.
of course, it's gonna be easy for her if she's a former porn star
And then
to
we have
show her
Sydney.
ass.
You have Sydney Sweeney, who was on Euphoria as well, who was very uncomfortable with showing her boobs, but ended up showing it anyways. So I think it just depends. I feel like it depends on a lot of things. It depends on your moral consciousness. It also depends on the money. It depends on the direction that you want to go in. It really just depends. Like, there's so many choices and there's so many directions to go in Hollywood. And I feel like when you're young, from the ages of like 18 to 35, there's just many directions to go in. You can choose to stick to the same brand and milk it for as long as you can, or you can say, hey, this is a better direction for me, my team, future wise, for more roles. I mean, ever since Zendaya has been in Euphoria, look at her now. She's in Dunes. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. She's in so many films.
Dune was garbage.
Yeah, that movie sucked. I could not get past half British accent. American accent, Middle Eastern slash African Arab
Yeah,
scenery.
and that's a good example. What's wrong with her taking on more serious roles, right? What's wrong with her taking on roles where she can be somebody of significance in a movie and look really cool, because that was all she about did in the movie, was look really cool, right? And
Yeah.
she only but had a few lines, at least for the first movie. I don't see the problem with you understanding the responsibility you have as a public figure to your target audience. And you have to understand that even as a grown woman, majority of your target audience, in my opinion, is going to be little kids, right? They are the biggest consumers of pop culture. They are the biggest consumers of media, right? So um based off that alone, they're going to be majority of the ones consuming the things that Zendaya is promoting, right? Caller, are you there? All right, looks like,
Can you hear me?
yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah, it's such a tricky pickle with this situation because I love Zendaya. I think that she has evolved so much as a young woman. I know that she's like 26 now. She's in a very serious relationship with Thomas Holland. They're living together. Hopefully, they end up getting married. I know that it's probably tough for her because she doesn't want to be looked at or stereotyped, probably, but she doesn't really. I feel like it's out of her hands. I really do. I kind of feel like she's going to pick a role that probably is the best financial decision for her, as well as a role that makes her feel like it could advance her career. So, like I said, I haven't seen the new movie. I definitely will be checking it out. But yes, I mean,
That
it's
that's a movie you would consider. That's a movie you would consider yourself interested in.
I'm a Zendaya fan, so it doesn't matter. She could be in Blue's Clues, and I'll probably watch it. It's just like some people like Tom Hanks. They'll
Yeah, but
watch
that's the
Forrest
thing.
Gump, and then they'll watch
I
Captain
don't, I,
Phillips.
I don't think she's ever gonna go back to some type of movie where she's playing a character like uh like a Blue's Clues or any kind of wholesome kind of character, right? I think she's kind of moved forward on all that and left that kind
um,
of in the past.
I think it depends. Look at Margot Robbie. She was the crazy Harley Quinn, and now she's in Barbie. It all depends on what is more lucrative, who is auditioning for the director, who they want,
So you're
and
saying to the more degenerate thing is the more lucrative business. Is that
it
what you're saying?
depends. Yes, but it depends.
Yes. That's a wild accusation. There's a lot of things out there as far as in the world of cinematography goes, right? Within the world of cinema that
Mhm.
make a lot of money, can earn a lot of money and still be wholesome. Now, I'm not saying and I know a
Like,
lot of people, when you think wholesome, everybody likes to just assume it's like square. Oh, he's so square or whatever. But I'm not saying at the same time that everything that she does needs to be wholesome, but for her to be shocked in that in my last live when I shared that she's so shocked that a little girl is there. I mean,
the
even if
body language that she gave me wasn't shocked. I look. She seemed embarrassed.
I mean, she tried for number one. The shock was disingenuous because she probably was embarrassed, but that in itself should have been a wake up call on who your target audience is. That majority of people who are consuming your content are children. That's the problem. So you have a responsibility, therefore, to try and tone down, right? The type of theater right? And the type of character you want to portray in theater to those who are consuming your art, right? And her art is acting. And that should be a the little girl in that video should be a telltale sign to Zendaya herself that most of her art is being consumed by those a lot younger than she.
So you're
So
trying to say that these artists and these actors and actresses need to take
no,
on
not these
the
artists.
role
I'm primarily when um child stars,
they mhm.
specifically child Disney stars, child Nickelodeon stars, because a lot of people start out watching Disney when they're like 3 years old.
So that she should go ahead and take the the role of a parent and say, I need to
Yes,
water
exactly. She
down.
should take on some responsibility and accountability. I'm not saying she needs to take on 100%. Of course, those parents need to take 50% of that of responsibility, not 100, because the other 50 goes to her. If she were to make the choice that, hey, instead of doing that, I'm going to do this because most of my target audience is going to be susceptible to the type of to the type of image that I portray, rather it be negative or positive.
You say 50, but I say 100 because once she
Because
waters it
it goes
down,
to
it doesn't
it
allow the
always takes
parents.
two. It always takes two. The
Well, once an
parents
artist, okay, I'm sorry.
the parents can put the parental guide on as much as they want on the TV, but with today's technology, kids can YouTube stuff. They can
I
go
know.
on they
That's
can
why I'm
go on a
saying she.
website. It doesn't even just have to be them. They can go to a friend's house and see stuff and watch movies. They can go onto a public library if they wanted to and watch movies, right?
Yes, sir. So
So
I'm just
it
saying.
doesn't necessarily have to always be the parents. The parents can do everything in their power to make sure a kid doesn't see something and the kid still see it.
That's what I'm saying. So I'm saying that it would be a
So the
100% on. It
responsibility
would be.
falls on both parties, and the reason why it falls on Zendaya is because you can see she immediately tries to avoid taking any accountability for doing something like Euphoria, for doing something like this movie called Challenge. Why? Because it's easier for her to disassociate herself with the art in which she's helping create.
And what I'm saying is that you're saying it's 50-50, but to me,
Oh,
once
it
Zendaya or
if
any
the
hold
reason
on,
is
let me say something. Once Zendaya or any artist from Bella Thorne to Raven Simone, whoever, once they go ahead and say, I'm going to water down my content and make wholesome content, it totally just takes away the parents' responsibility to even have the parental guide, to even have to keep an eye on monitor on what their kids watch and consume, because the artist has now said, or the actress or whatever has now said, I'm going to go ahead and take the responsibility of completely turning down roles and only accepting roles that have either positive image or roles that everybody of all ages can see, including children. So
exactly.
now the parents don't even need parental control. They don't even need to, because they completely trust that artist or that actress or that whoever
No,
to go ahead and
that's
put.
not at all what I'm saying. The parents
No,
should
I'm saying
have
that's how it's gonna probably end up being. Though I'm
no.
not saying you're saying that, but
It's what I'm saying is a little bit different from what you're interpreting it as. Because what I'm saying is the parental guidance should still be very well up there. Parents playing their part, but also actors and actresses playing their part primarily and more specifically, Disney child stars and Nickelodeon child stars. Because no matter how much older they get, a lot of kids are still going to be following them, even those from a much younger generation, because of things such as reruns and every time they do some type of event on that network and they show all those old movies and stuff like that that these actors used to be in, and the kids fall in love with it. And another thing too is that, you know, another thing that I had showed in my video is where I talked about impressionable minds, and I talked about this, you know, I shared a video where there was this 13-year-old girl who got her breast removed, right? Because she was influenced by the things that she had saw on social media, right? So, and this is a 13-year-old girl. And and the same thing can be said for, when a young girl is watching a movie and she's watching her idol, right? Because these celebrities are worshipped. She's watching her idol act in a promiscuous way, and and even though Zendaya herself isn't telling these anybody to act in a promiscuous way, she's still conveying that message with the image she's portraying via that movie. And
So, how do you suggest people to transition into mature roles? Like, that's why we have genres for children and we have genres for adults. Like, how do you, what do you tell someone who has been working as a child star and is now in their mid 20s or late 20s or early 30s and they want to be in more mature
my
roles?
suggestion is this: if you actually give a fuck about your audience, if you actually give a fuck about your fans, and if you know that prime your the your target audience, meaning majority of your fans, are children, and you actually care about them, you'll actually sacrifice taking certain roles. You'll sacrifice taking a certain
Mm.
amount of income to say no, because I don't want to be a negative influence in their life. I want them to have a positive role model. I want them to make decisions that will lead to positive outcomes, right? So if you're a person who actually gives a fuck, you'll have the awareness in saying to yourself, like, wait, I'm a child star. I grew up making Disney movies. I grew up making Nickelodeon shows. And what would be the impact of this decision, of X, Y, and Z decision, of X, Y, and Z role if I take on this adult role? What would be the impact of majority of children who are watching this character who has an obvious negative influence because he houses, for the majority of the movie, negative qualities, right?
Mm.
And that's the thing. You actually, as an actor, as an actress, have to have to first give a fuck. And I'm talking, like I said, more specifically, child stars, right? Because we can see, based off observation, that child stars typically, for a long time running, have a younger generation of people watching them, even on their current stuff. So it's just the way it is. So the
And not
first
many
thing,
child stars are very successful till this day. You only have a few.
yeah, and the ones that are why? Because they get almost, in my opinion, they get almost groomed for these roles, to play these roles as degenerates. Because how many people have we seen? How many celebrities have we seen who were child stars go into more adult themed roles, or even go into um full on porn or something like that? You know what I'm saying? And the reasons are different for everybody. I
I think it
remember.
depends. Like, not everybody's going to be Tia and Tamara and do Hallmark movies and get on,
It don't gotta. It don't gotta be Hallmark.
No,
You
I know.
she
I'm just saying, not everybody's going to go into that direction. Some people are going to end up doing roles that are mature and end up winning Oscars for that role
Yeah,
and fulfilling their,
and that's fine, and that's
their
fine.
bucket
But
list.
the standard should be a little bit different. You should hold yourself to a little bit of a different standard than
Hmm.
all these other actors and actresses, knowing the type of impact you have, more specifically as a child star who is now an adult. Understanding your target audience, because if that clip of that little girl saying to Zendaya, uh, uh, hey, you know, what was that transition like from Disney to Euphoria? That should be a big smack in the face as far as in it being a wake up call to her about who the hell her target audience really is. Little girls. Oh,
I'm
there's
sure.
a little
I'm
girls in here. Oh my
no.
gosh.
I'm
Of
sure
course
she
there
knows.
is.
I'm sure she knows her target audience is little girls because when the show gets rerun on Disney, they're always notified and they do get monetary compensation for that. She does make music as well. So I'm pretty sure that she knows a part of her demographic and target audience is children. Is it her concern to care? I mean, that just depends on her, on her. But I do hear what you're saying. I do agree. I do think that we need to protect the children and we need to care and think outside of ourselves. But at the same time, working in Hollywood and being an actor and wanting to have these accolades and be remembered and mature is a lot for one person to take on. That's why normally they have a team. But I
Yeah,
do
and
think
it's really not one person taking it on. We all have to do our part to seek to protect a child's innocence for as long as possible. And I think if, like I said, it goes back to actually giving a fuck. If you actually give a fuck, then you'll actually be one of those human beings who, in 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 ways of demonstration, not through your words, but in ways of action, who seek to protect a child's innocence. You'll decide. And by way of action, you'll decide what type of roles you'll play. You can play kick-ass roles. It don't gotta be Hallmark. You can play a role where you're straight. It's action packed. It's action adventure, and you're straight up kicking ass left and right. It don't gotta be Hallmark, but it don't gotta be degeneracy either.
I mean Rihanna played a role like that and then she's singing,
But Rihanna can't act, and Rihanna's a terrible example.
I'm
But
just saying, people switch up. So one day you'll see an actor in an action-packed
yeah,
movie.
people
The
switch up
next
to
you'll
straight
see
up
them.
evil. That's what they switch up to. If you go back to my live, I mean, they got a frame of her when she's like looking up or something, like at the two guys, and it's insinuating something to me, and it's just like, you know, how much how much further down the rabbit hole of degeneracy are we going to go? Like it's kind of like once you kind of open Pandora's box, you can't close it, and it's just like I don't understand why there happens to be a pattern, a prolific pattern of young child stars, right? Who all of a sudden feel that they have to wash away everything. They wash away their childhood by doing more, taking on adult themed roles, and I don't think that's entirely up to them. I think that behind the scenes, things are purposely manufactured in that way to taint the youth. Now, she might not have the awareness of that. Many people might not have an awareness of that. But I believe that things are manufactured that way. Specifically, child stars are almost groomed to become adult themed entertainers in some form or another because the people who are pulling the strings behind the scenes are very much aware that their target audience is going to be children. So the people behind the scenes, so to speak, the manufacturers, the people who run Hollywood, so to speak, I think have sort of a ritual, right? Maybe not like a sacrificial ritual, but just a ritual that that always leads to a child star getting into more adult themed roles. It seems to be a pattern at this point, and I think Zendaya is just one of many, many actresses who we've seen do this. And I think that scene in itself speaks for itself, right? Where it's just
And
like,
I think it's also happened before, our time or my time in specifically. Like, I know Drew Barrymore
yeah, Drew
started off as
Barrymore,
a child
exactly.
star, and then she got, into adult roles. And I'm sure Reese Witherspoon, when I was a little bit in my teenage years, I saw reruns of movies that she was in. And I think this it goes as far as to our parents and our great grandparents age of just people starting off as child stars, and then
And if it's not the movies, then there's some type of controversy, right? Like if you look at Vanessa Hudgens, she was in High School Musical. A lot of kids followed her, and then all of a sudden, her nudes leaked, right? So it's
hmm
it there's it just seems like behind the scenes, certain things are manufactured in a particular way so that the the purity of that of what they had once portrayed before is now tainted by what they're portraying now. And
yeah.
and it that what's being tainted is almost proliferated at the same time. So not only is their image tainted, their image of purity tainted, but now all of all of the purity of the youth who bear witness to their purity being tainted, they're now tainted as well, right? So it's almost like a mirror, right? So
Well, I growing up, I listened to Taylor Swift, and Taylor Swift did come and perform at my high school, and now it seems that she's transitioning into more of a darker type
more darker
artist.
vibe, like in her
But
last
then again,
video where she's wearing like a some type of demon
exactly.
mask and
But
red
then
red.
I'm not gonna say it's just her, because there's a team
Oh,
member.
it's
There's a
not
team
just her.
behind art.
If you also look at how when Little Nas first came out, Little Nas X, right? He started out with Old Town Road, right, or whatever it was called, and his target audience was mainly kids. I even remember him performing Old Town Road at like a preschool, and it was Old Town Road and Panini. And next thing you know, he's got a music video where he's lap dancing for Satan. So in a way, you see a lot of these artists and a lot of these actors and actresses pull what I call an old bait and switch, right? And they do that with the kids. They bait them with things that are kid friendly, and then they switch it with adult content, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say that because I was gonna say Old Town Road. It sounded very innocent until Little Nas X actually breaks it down. He's performing it in schools and for little kids, and it's the theme song that was being played every
Right.
day for the past year.
It
But
was
when you
his
sit down,
trope.
you sit down, you actually ask him about the content of Old Town Road. He'll tell you that that song had so many sexual innuendos in it. It was
Yeah, and
ridiculous.
it pretty much wasn't for kids, but yet he was performing it
For
for
children.
kids. And
And
there's
the
an actual
video
video. I don't know if it's still up on YouTube, but it was actually
was,
up on YouTube where he performed Old Town Road for a bunch of
yep,
preschoolers, and they knew the song by heart,
I heart,
word for
yeah.
word. And
Yeah,
then couple
example.
years later, he comes out as gay. And then after coming out as gay, he next thing you know, he's doing a lap dance for Satan himself in one of his music videos. So he hits these kids with a lot of these actors, actresses, and musicians. What they hit these kids with the old bait and switch, right? They bait
hmm
them with things that are of kid friendly genre, and then they switch it with something fucking degenerate after a while, right? With something fucking evil or with something fucking sexually immoral.
hmm
So to me, it's a way for the devil to work through people to taint the purity of the youth. And that is the main problem that I have, is that people do not have the awareness of the type of impact they have as public figures, especially specifically um child stars who grow up to be adults not realizing that still your target audience, they didn't all just grow up with you. A lot of them are still in the exist in a generation that is much younger than you, right? So
I can agree with you on that, Silver. I feel like it is our responsibility as adults and young adults and even older adults to be more conscious about the message that we're spreading out in the world, because children are the future and they need protection, especially with a lot of the things that's going on today in society. And there is a lot of bait and switch, a lot of it, and it's not just not in movies, but TV shows and music and clothing. It's everywhere. So I do think that it's very imperative for people to stand up and say that enough is enough, and kind of put more emphasis on protecting children. I do think that's very important. So I do agree with what you're saying. I looked at it in a way of like, I don't want it to be like it's only Zendaya's 100% all her fault, that she's put in these positions and situations, because I'm not in Hollywood, so I have no idea the pressures that they have to succumb to kind of stay on top and to keep that lifestyle going, because more money you make, more bills. So I'm sure that she has a lot of people in her life that she has to look out for, and I'm sure that she has a vision and a lot of things that she wants to, accomplish. A lot of the times people say, "Oh, it's so silly that actors and singers are only, doing all of this just to receive a piece of metal like an Oscar or a Grammy." But that's their goal, and that's why they do this, not just for the love, but I think it's for that accolade. So I mean, it's super important that we look outside of ourselves and we try to do better in protecting our kids, even in schools. There's a lot of things going on in the world, outside of Zendaya and these child stars, from drag queens coming into libraries to speak to preschoolers,
right, and that's
to
the thing,
for-
and
forcing opposite genders, people who identify as an opposite gender, into bathrooms with women or spas with women. I mean, we deal with the most outlandish shit every day that we kind of have to just
right.
swallow.
And you gotta stand for some, like, I'll give you an example, right? Like, she could have decided, I'm gonna take this role, and I know, here's an example, like Jenna were saying that, she was bratty, she was bossy, because they were writing things down that she felt the character would never say, so she would refuse to say certain things in her dialogue because she felt like it completely went against the character, right? So
Hmm.
it's
This
like,
is the same girl that they're trying to shame for
yeah,
smoking cigarettes and
yeah,
drinking
yeah,
wine,
yeah. But
and she's
listen,
a
but
full on
listen,
adult.
but yeah, exactly. But listen, it Jenna Ortega took a stand, not just for herself, but for the character at hand. And if you could take a stand for something as small as far as like character development and how accurate you are going to be as far as portraying that character, why can't you take a stand on the type of character you want to portray to women and, younger girls, right? You could
Yeah,
take a
I
stand
think
if you could take
that
a stand on something like that. I don't understand why it would be also so hard to also take a stand and say, hey, I don't think my character, she's a very strong tennis player. I don't think my character is going to put herself in that situation, right? And, I think maybe the love triangle is cool, but I don't think there should be a love triangle with two guys, one girl, one bed, both dudes in their boxers and kissing me on my neck. I don't think that shows true commitment to the type of character I'm playing because of the type of person that she is. Or she didn't even have to go that route. Maybe she would have, if she really had standards, she would say, I'm not doing this at all because I'm with a guy who's really clean cut and he probably wouldn't like me doing something like this. right?
Well, we can't speak for Tom Holland. We have no
Well, yeah,
idea
because you know what?
what he
I'd hate
likes
to believe
because
that Tom Holland is a cuck, but at the end of the
he
day,
may
any
be.
man is gonna feel uncomfortable with that. Any man's gonna feel uncomfortable. Why? Even if it is just acting, that is a scene that would make any man uncomfortable. Even if he is just watching behind the camera, unless he likes it, which would therefore make him a cuck. But nobody,
Yeah,
no true, no real guy, come on now, is going to like that scene.
he's not gonna like it, babe. But he's also an actor.
He's an actor. Yeah. It's one thing if she's kissing one guy for the whole entire movie, or if she's even pretending to have sex, right, for the movie, and it's one guy, right? And if she kisses two guys, it's at two different parts, two different segments of the movie. It's not at the same time in the same room back to back
I'm
where
sure that
where
scene was
where the
awkward for her too.
right, and then in the trailer, it insinuates that she, like at one point of the trailer, even closely, if you look closely at her face and the angle of the camera, slightly above her, and she's looking up at it, it kind of insinuates like she's about to suck both of them off. I mean, let's just be honest.
I mean, in Euphoria, she's in a whole relationship with a
It
transgender.
promotes sexual immorality. Let's just keep it a buck. That whole trailer. I'm not saying the whole movie does, but the trailer sure as hell does, and that's why Tom Holland got memed. And people are, oh, people are just having a
But
go.
so does Euphoria. Euphoria does promote sexual immorality. I just said that she was in a
Exactly.
relationship.
So you would think that after she got called out by a little girl about the transition from Disney to Euphoria, about seeing, and here's the thing, she didn't even want to really take accountability for that, because I don't know if it was an article or if it was a tweet that she had put out where she had said something of the nature where uh she had said, hold up, I probably can pull it up right now. See if I can pull it up.
I like how you used Jenny Ortega as an example because there were quite a few people in Euphoria that stood up against Sam Levinson that are no longer in the show because they didn't agree with the things that they were making him. They were that the things that he was making them say and making them take their
Yeah,
clothes off.
degenerate shit. And
So
motherfuckers
one of my
just kept.
favorite characters, Barbie Ferreira, who played Kat, who's very popular in season one, she ended up leaving the show
One
because of
second, Nubian Wolf. Let me see if this is the video.
Euphoria is the biggest
yes,
show in the
sir.
world right now, but it's getting some backlash and Zendaya is defending it. To explain this, the show recently came under fire from the drug education organization DARE. Their claim is people shouldn't be watching the show because they said it glamorizes drug
Okay,
abuse.
so it had something to do with Dare. I don't know if you can hear it. I probably could bring it up real quick. Um, let me see. Is the Dare program? They felt like, you know the show was glamorizing addiction. I'll just run you the synopsis as it plays through, and then
Teenagers. And a lot of teen dramas have had similar complaints like
um
Proclaim 13 Reasons Why glamorizes
her
suicide, or the
response
show Secret Life, which many people
her response pretty much was that um like she was deflecting accountability once more, which, and her response was basically like, oh, it's not really about addiction. It's about, the people who are going through that and letting them know that they're not alone. And you have to be able to look at it realistically and honestly say that it is promoting, you know, um teenagers being on drugs, right? In a way,
It is.
and you, maybe she's not, like, it's not promote, like, so a lot of people like to think promotion in the form of advertisement, like, oh my god, here, like, you know how about you take some crack, with a big ad on top of their head, right? Like, it's not promotion in that way. It's promoting by the type of um lifestyle you're portraying in your work of art, which is acting. That's how you promote it. It can be, and that's the form, and that's what people have to understand. You know,
But Euphoria does promote drugs. It does promote sex.
sexual
Does
immorality.
promote it does promote broken families. You know,
Right.
Zendaya's character, she is an interracial she's a product of an interracial marriage where her father passes away and she's with her mother who's a single mother who's doing everything she can for her and her sister, and she's just stuck on that feeling of getting high because she can't shake the death of her father, and that's where it stems from. And in all of that, in the midst of that, she's mixed up with a drug dealer named Fez, who's one of her best friends, who considers a brother, and in a weird love relationship with a transgender. So, I mean, it does promote confusion, trauma and loss, and how do you handle it. So, yeah, that show does promote a lot of immoral topics, but real life topics too. So,
Yeah, what you're saying, I wasn't even aware of that because I had seen some of the show, but then because of the nature of the show, I couldn't even bring myself to really watch
oh
it
yeah,
until its
there
completion.
that show. I mean, it's there's a scene of Zendaya with Labyrinth. He is an artist. He does most of the songs for Euphoria, and she's singing with him. And it's a very sad, sad scene because it looks like she's hugging God because she's tired. She's tired of feeling alone. She's tired of missing her father, of not being able to be with him. And I mean, the first season doesn't really touch up too much, of the loss and the grief. But as you continue to watch, you can see that her pain stems from losing her dad. Losing her dad, I believe he died of cancer. So, losing her dad to cancer and never really being able to say goodbye and deal with that. And so she turns into a very selfish, manipulative drug addict, and conning her mom, making her mom believe that she's not high when she's high half of the time. And she ends up being outed by her partner at the time, the transgender girl, and Elliot, one of their friends. So it sucks, but it does promote those immoral things. But there's also um, there's also trauma that kind of um, brings that out. Is what I was gonna say.
Right.
So the show's pretty deep. I mean, it comes out 2024. It's gonna be a 3 to 4 year jump, so they'll all be adults then. So parents,
Yeah.
please.
Well, I know you're looking forward to watching it, right?
I like Zendaya. Euphoria is. I would say this: like Euphoria isn't moving. Like it isn't a show that's like action packed, makes you think a lot. Like when I think of a show that's like makes you think a lot, like I don't know if you've ever heard of the show, but it's a show called Siren, and it was on Sci-Fi, and it was canceled after 2 seasons, and it was about sirens, which is a different breed of a mermaid. And that was a really good show. Like those are the type of shows that I normally would say would make me think, would make me very interested. Shows like Magicians, but Euphoria, I feel like I just watch it because I'm a Zendaya fan. There's some parts that I like, some parts that I don't like. For example, I don't really like the Jacob Elordi. He's a character in Euphoria. He's a very um angry because he is attracted to transgenders, and they're trying to say that it stems from his father because he ended up watching a videos of his father sleeping with men and transgenders, and that kind of he when he was a kid. Found the videos in his dad's office, and it kind of stuck with him ever since. And he's been hiding those emotions and feelings for a very long time. And kind of just how they went about it was just so effed up to me. I don't know. Just his character and how he treated the women in the show, and just what they're trying to portray, from the download to the, well, he's not gay or he is gay. It's just very confusing and very, I don't really like that part. But I'm a big Zendaya fan, so I pretty much like to watch all of her stuff, but I can't say that I agree with every choice that she makes.
Right. I mean, and thank you for kind of expanding upon the kind of intricacies of the drama that goes on in the world of Euphoria, the show of Euphoria. And I just think um overall it it probably wouldn't I think I probably wouldn't come down like in my last live and how I'm doing now, probably wouldn't come down as hard as I am on her if she at least acknowledged, right, the impact that these kind of rules have.
I say
Rather,
wait till she has a child. Wait till she becomes a mother. She will see.
well, yeah, just like how when Cardi B was doing all of the music she was doing, and then when there was a video where, her kid came down the steps and then she turned her own music off, right? She was playing her music in the kitchen, right? Partying out. There's a video of her Cardi B doing this, and
Mhm.
she's, rocking out to her own music, her own degenerate music, and then her daughter comes down the stairs and, I think I don't know how old her daughter was, 3, maybe 4 at the time, and she completely and in a very hurried manner, like, I mean, she was trying to be as fast as she could, to turn her own music off because she didn't want her daughter to hear it. It's okay for everyone else's daughter to hear it, but you want to keep your child's
Mhm.
I should say, you want to preserve your child's innocence, but don't care about the innocence of other people's children. And that's why I feel like it always goes down to, if you actually care about, the people who are consuming your fucking music, who are consuming your fucking art, then you're going to also do your best to choose, right, more wholesome themes. It doesn't have to be square, it doesn't have to be Hallmark. It can be kick ass, but without it going into a level of degeneracy, a level of debauchery. And it
I
doesn't.
have to agree with what you just said, because a similar example, I just read an article of Kim Kardashian say that she regrets her daughter dressing up as Ice Spice now that she has listened to Ice Spice's lyrics. So it is true. It's that they want to protect their own children from innocence, but they don't care about the majority of children because it's not their own. And I agree. We got people like Alexa Penavega from Spy Kids. I mean, she's not the most famous now. She does do some Hallmark movies, but she's made it her goal to have a wholesome life with her and her husband, who was also in a uh, in a music group called Big Rush.
Are they Christian? Are they Christian?
Yeah, they're
Well,
Christian.
that says a lot right there in itself, because Christians are, in my opinion, they're not always the best of people, but they're the people who care probably more so than the people of the world, right? The people of the world don't give a fuck about anybody except their goddamn selves, right? All they care about is them and theirs. That's it, right? Everything
Mhm.
else doesn't matter. So it's just like, yeah, parents keep a watchful eye, but at the end of the day, these other motherfuckers too need to be held accountable just as much as the parents do, like you said. but these motherfuckers need to be held to a higher standard too, especially um given the surrounding circumstances in their particular given situation.
So I have a question. Like, let's give another example. She's a little bit before our time. She's a little bit older, but I would say Megan Good. She's a full-on Christian woman, married a pastor, wrote a book with him. However, she did not change her attire. Neither did she pick and choose what mature roles she should be in and whatnot. Um, do you think that she should be held accountable? Because she started off as a child actor, and when I grew up a little older, I remember watching her in a movie called Eve's Bayou with Donald Glover. In that movie, she was having sexual relations with her father. But that was a weird one. But yeah, I mean, she's always been known
Absolutely, I
for.
absolutely think that she should be held accountable. I
Okay.
absolutely think that she needs to take ownership of the type of art that she puts out into the world.
But
And
she's considered a wholesome woman. Like Kat says, boobs
no,
out.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying like, oh, at, but what I'm saying is, if you're not going to give a fuck, at
Hmm.
least acknowledge, at least have the, at least be mature enough to take responsibility and accountability. So, and one way of at least starting to do that is by acknowledging, like, yes, that is negatively influencing the minds of the youth. Yes. And a lot of people don't even want to have that acknowledgement, let alone the responsibility and the accountability factor. So, and that's why you need other people to try and hold you accountable, so that you can first at least acknowledge and see and understand the impact of your choices, right? Because an artist is not separate from his art, ever. As much as they like to make themselves out to be, they just aren't. And you can say, "Oh, it's just rapping, it's just music. Oh, it's just acting. It's but it's not. Sometimes it's more than that for some people, because some people, primarily children, are susceptible and easily influenced. And I think it's more than that. I think people are also a little bit of my theory. I think people are, under some type of mass hypnosis at the same time. That's why we call them the sheeple, because they're just, they're hypnotized. But
I agree. But
yeah. But I like the points you made. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for coming
thank you.
on, Nubian Wolf, and thank you for hearing me out as well. You know, so I think
As always, I love your content. I think that you have a lot of great things to say. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing the evolution of Silver Fox over the months to come. Thank you so much for having me, and God bless you.
well, thank you. I appreciate that. You have a
Have a
good
good
one.
morning. Bye bye.
Yeah, y'all. I think that's pretty much gonna be it. You know, that was a that was good, but that's pretty much gonna be it. Thank you for tuning in to the Sober Fox Show. Have to catch you guys on the flip, on another live. Maybe we'll have another debate, but y'all take easy. Y'all take it easy out there. It's a crazy world we living in. It's the Silver Fox